And you're live.
Thank you. This is the Committee of Conference on the H679, which is the FY 2022 budget adjustment. And we know that everybody's had a busy morning, so what we may be able to close out here at noon may be somewhat limited. Would like to offer the opportunity for the House conferees to offer any recommendations in terms of what they might be willing to close out now. I would like to suggest we close out just those effective date section, technical adjustment on 74 and 81. And there may be a couple of others that we could close out as of now.
So thank you, Senator Kitchell. That is the only one that I had on my list to offer. So we agree with, there was a technical change to the date in section 781, and we agree with that. So we can close that one. And then so the House Appropriations Committee, joined by a couple of members from the House Institutions Committee, had an interesting and very full conversation this morning about the governor's proposal on to pay off the $20 million in bonds, but also because they are woven together as one proposal. We also had a long conversation about the cash fund that they are proposing to set up. And I think you're going to want to take, I don't know if Senate Appropriations has had a chance to go into any detail on that. And I think it will create many questions for you about how paying off what paying off that bond gets us in terms of ongoing obligations and opportunities for the capital bill, but also lost revenue or lost spending opportunity for us in the appropriation side. And one of my conclusions is that we need to understand the whole picture of what paying off the 20 million in bonds is, but at the same time, we also need to have a full picture of all of the debt that we are carrying. I know that we propose to pay off about $10 million in debt and a couple of funds, and you added to that. I think we need to step back and through the bill for 23, have the full picture of what we're trying to accomplish and not do these kind of one-off and find out that we've limited our opportunities for doing other important work. Another piece that I want to add into that, just for your thinking, is we are also learning that we need to make another about $15 million in payment to the ADEC for teachers and state employees to take full advantage of the big pension solution that you've worked so hard on, Senator Kitchell. It requires one more piece of one-time spending in 23, as I said, for a total of about $15 million. And I'm getting very protective now. We are getting very protective now of those one-time dollars and wanting to make sure that we put them in the right place. So I think we may want to look at all of the financial house cleaning that we're trying to do and make sure that we're spending it in the best way possible. I don't have something to offer you on this, but that's what we're thinking about right now.
Well, we can, obviously, we're going to have more discussion about that. we can, I think probably joint fiscal will be very helpful in kind of putting that total picture together. We were looking at it like so many things, getting our fiscal house in order and closing out internal service deficits, whether we're talking about the Cannabis Control Board or the the additional 5 million that we put on sort of if there's funding available at the end of the year, as really getting things off the CAFR. And that's part of what was we were thinking about as beneficial to the state's fiscal bottom line. And those debts don't go away. And so with the money, I realized that getting particularly the cost of healthcare benefits, which we've never funded, getting that in place. This first year there is some one-time cost because the additional revenues that are coming in from higher contributions are not there yet. So I think it's probably a difference of opinion about what is the benefit and the extent to which we address these dribs and drabs of deficits and get them cleaned up and get the CAFR notations limited. And maybe joint fiscal can help us with that. Obviously, when you pay off bonds, then that does free up money. And I don't know as if, from our perspective, if that money from the callable bonds getting that paid in no way was intended to be interpreted as though we were giving a green light or rendering an opinion about the governor's proposed fund and the PAYGO approach. So I want to make that very, very clear. What happens with that money that's freed up is not in any way to be interpreted. So we are committing ourselves, and what happens with that money, whether I think it's in the vicinity of 6 million, is something that we definitely would be contemplating and evaluating as we make decisions for 23.
Yeah.
So I just want to make that perfectly clear, because I can see where that would be distressing if somehow that were interpreted as though we were going 100% and endorsing or saying that's our position on that governor's proposed, because that would be premature, and we have not really evaluated it to the extent that it should.
Well,
nor are we committing the 6 million. And if obviously if we don't pay it, then you are going to have a $6 million issue in the 23 budget, because I believe that was assumed when the administration built the budget.
So I think when you speak with JFO, you will see that the logic of paying the bond, the 20 million off on the bonds, is interwoven with the other proposal. And they make them, in my opinion, they only make sense if you do them together. And quite frankly, it creates a lot of questions that have been unresolved, certainly on our side, about the wisdom of doing this. And so I think you need to look at that much more deeply and not think of them as two separate proposals. And JFO was terrific. We had, as I said, about 3 hours of testimony from Dan Dickerson this morning. I thought it would take at the most an hour, and the more we talked about it, the more questions we had. So I urge you to look at it, and that's part of our rationale for saying maybe this is the right thing to do. We don't know. And I think we need to look at the financial house cleaning notion as a whole in 23. We may totally agree with what you're proposing in the BAA, but I would like to have the full picture and just make sure that we're putting the dollars in the right place. to which I add that need for paying off for beginning the pre-funding of the healthcare expenses and wanting to make sure that we have what is not envisioned in the governor's budget, that $15 million to begin that process, which, as you well know, in terms of making a significant marker in terms of putting our financial house in order, it is so much more significant. What is it?
$1.6 billion
Yeah.
between the two.
Yeah. And that's where I want to make sure we take care of business first. So I want to see the whole picture. I want to do it in 23 and not FY22.
Well, all right, maybe we could, obviously you have the benefit of some discussion this morning that we haven't had. So we can, obviously not going to come to agreement on it right now. The other, and I know that you're probably not prepared, but we had quite a bit of discussion with the Cannabis Control Board. And you had requested 3 positions, you had authorized 3 positions out of the 11. Our committee spent quite a bit of time on that and felt that that this was controversial to move forward. The bill that came from the Senate had much fewer administrative requirements than the bill that was finally passed because of additions that were made by the House and which were subsequently agreed to. But those additional requirements require staffing. And we were very concerned to start up a new program and try to be penny wise and pound foolish and not have the necessary resources to implement this program and do it well. And so that was the nature of our discussion, and that it was around what is required. We asked Stephanie from Joint Fiscal to sit down and go over sort of the work required, what the final bill would require be in place. And we ended up saying we didn't feel that we could adequately launch this program and do it well and with integrity with the 3 positions, and we moved to 8. So I just wanted to give you some background as to why we made the decision on that. And it was generally, we wanted to minimize to the extent we could that we would not have applications that couldn't be processed or work that couldn't be done timely at a time when the sort of the integrity of the program was going to be scrutinized and really most important. And we did not want to take that risk, and so move forward with the positions. And I know that Bryn Hare provided in writing the background behind that discussion and ultimately the positions that we did authorize. So you don't need to respond. I'm just telling you that was a topic of discussion of the committee, and that is making sure that we had adequately resourced the implementation. And so that was the only comment that I was going to make. I don't expect you to necessarily agree to it right now, but like you had discussion this morning, we had quite a bit of discussion and follow up with Bryn on that request. So I think then, anything else? Do you want to finish moving the railroad station?
No, we're not ready to move the railroad station. I'm sorry. With regard to the Cannabis Control Board, I think we have very mixed feelings about that. We recognize that the legislature has passed this significant piece of legislation. It does us no good not to properly resource it. My worry is that I do not feel adequately briefed to understand that 3 or 8 or 11 or 2 is the right number. I have a great deal of confidence in your all's analytic ability, and I know that you and particularly, I believe Senator Sears has looked at this very closely. I'm not sure we're going to learn any more in the next 4 or 5 days, or 3 or 4 days, however long it takes us to close this, to make any different decision. So we are willing to accept your proposal of moving to 8 positions. I would also note you made some date changes on the medical registry.
Yes,
With the give on your side that we not fill the deficit, not provide the 850,000 of general fund to the regulation fund. I understand what you're trying to accomplish, but I come back to my argument about not wanting to commit our general fund dollars to particular uses without looking at the big picture. And I'm not sure that's where we should be spending 850,000. And I think we could have that conversation in 23. I understand the argument for why you are looking at filling the deficit, given wanting to hold down the fees associated with regulation. But let's just have that conversation in 23. And so if you would agree to that, we would accept your 8 positions.
well, I'm not prepared to agree around the internal deficit because I see that as part of that larger discussion. So
Okay,
if you want to hold,
Then we'll hold on the positions.
okay. All right.
Okay. I don't have anything else then. Oh, but
Yes.
Jessup?
I just want to flag one thing that has come across my radar, and it relates to the $6 million that we gave to the childcare sector. That's in section 68, A30. And what was flagged for me is in section 72, there's the language about the benefits, what I'm calling the benefits cliff or the benefits guardrails for people who get retention bonuses. And the folks who work in the early childhood sector would like those same guardrails to apply to the $6 million that's in section 68, so that their folks are not treated differently or penalized for receiving a retention bonus. And there was conversation back and forth with DCF, and DCF's clarification, I think it's fair to say, was that they could live with this, but that they wanted it to be a one-time payment. And the only other piece that was flagged also around that same $6 million that's noted in section 68 is it currently reads, I'm looking at the annotated version, which is page 29. It currently reads early childhood educators.
Yes, and they want to change the staff.
Exactly.
I think we got that the same. So we had the request, and so why don't we put that on the list? I don't, was that your intent?
Correct.
Basically, we accepted your language.
Yeah.
Right, but we didn't have staff in it.
I know, so I don't know what the implications are.
So the one change would be on line 10, rather than having it read early childhood educators, it would be struck to staff, as you already said. And then the second construct, which I would defer to JFO how to do it, they always come up with an elegant way to do it, is to simply apply those same benefit cliff guardrails to the folks who are getting the $6 million, to that early childhood world. That's what I'm trying to do. And there may be, you could probably move one piece here, move the other there. How it happens, I have a suggestion right now. I would leave that to someone else, or I'm happy to work on it if that's desired.
Well, I received that same memo, to have that language, and we certainly want to have everybody treated the same, in terms the extent we can to protect them from having a benefit loss. I don't know if changing, staff means much more inclusive. The amount of money is the same. So you need to tell me, what will be the impact of that language change?
Well, how was it was explained to me was that if there is a team approach, and especially as we know in the early childhood education sector right now, there are people who are out all the time, and there are staff who are rotating through any number of positions. And there may be people who are working side by side or who are part of just getting the job done, who don't have the title of educator.
I do
So
understand
they're
that.
working side by side with somebody who's getting a bonus and they're perhaps not. That's how it was phrased to me.
And I understand the argument. My question to you is, what are the implications of changing it? What you're saying is it gives greater equity. My question is does this bring in, the money doesn't change, so we're not talking about money, but I would assume that what this does is make more childcare employees in childcare settings eligible.
Correct. Yes.
And that's all I'm asking is what is that impact? I imagine it will bring in, I don't know how many more
Right.
employees, but that was really my question. If you change
Right.
the language more universal, what does it do to the universe? And if that was really your intent from the beginning, and this is just simply a correction.
Great. Okay. I will try to find out how many more individuals would be included then with that same sum of 6 million.
And what the next question is if that was your intent to begin with, which I can't answer because it was your proposal, which we accepted. Was it your intent to make it more expansive? And I don't have a sense. Senator Westman?
I would be happy to sit down with Representative Jessup. I do think this is not people that are licensed and in the facility. I think what we're talking about here is staff like janitorial staff.
Absolutely. The cooks, people cooking the meals, et cetera.
And it would be helpful to know the type of employees and what, as well as the number.
And that's really all I'm asking is I don't want anyone to think that I'm opposed to it. I'm just thinking that this has an implication and I'm trying to understand. And I would assume we are talking about all the staff, regardless of their job function, being in this universe. But I don't know what it means in terms of number of employees different. And from a fiscal perspective, the 6 million remains unchanged. So it's just more a matter of really understanding what is the impact of that language change.
Right, understood.
And who benefits.
Right, and thank you. And I will look forward to speaking with Senator Westman.
In the meantime, we can take that same language. I think when we're in agreement that that language to protect people from the impact of the benefit can be repeated there as well.
Great.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. Okay. I wish we had more.
Well, I offered you the railroad station, but you didn't want that.
Well, there you go. And we
Okay,
had
well,
talked about getting together again this afternoon. I'm not sure we will know more this afternoon, so I'm not sure what the utility is of trying to meet at 3 or 3:30, whatever we agreed.
all right. Well, we can, there's no point in meeting, what I would do is have you make it, get back to me, Representative through Teresa and Chrissy. And if you feel that we really have nothing worthy of calling another meeting on a Friday afternoon at 3:30, I don't think anybody would be brokenhearted. If in fact we could wrap this up today, then that would be different, but I sense that's not going to happen. So why don't we just leave it that unless we hear differently from you, we will not be meeting again today at 3:30. But we will let people know if that changes.
Changes, yeah. Okay, thank you. That sounds like a plan.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Ready to go off live?
Yes, we can go offline.